Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Black Mental Health Matters podcast, where we discuss mental health issues faced by people in the Black community. We invite a range of mental health professionals from across the world to discuss and share resources on how we can tackle mental health issues in our community. Today, I've got a school counselor, Rudo from America, joining us to discuss stigma and mental health stigma in the Black community. Hello, Rudo.
Hello, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Do you mind just sharing with us exactly what it is you do in your profession as a mental health practitioner?
Yes. Currently right now I work at a school, so I'm a school counselor. And basically for me, I'm just helping the students kind of compartmentalize their mental health. That way it doesn't get in the way of their schoolwork. Because most of them do are like failing their classes, being absent at school. So it's kind of like getting them to conceptualize what's going on because most of them are going through like their parents are they have like substance abuse or they're facing abuse themselves or bullying in school. So getting them to really talk about it really is just like my step. It's kind of giving them a safe space to actually talk about the issues that they're going through.
No, that sounds like really important work that you're doing as well, because these issues, like you've said, can severely affect, the education. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Do you mind just sharing with us, what a typical day would be like for you when supporting these students?
Oh yeah. So I work closely with the guidance counselor. So the guidance counselor, if they have a kid, they'll send them down to me. We'll have our first initial like meeting, like, hey, I'm Rudo. I'll be here like every day. If you need me, this is my office. And then we'll set up an initial like intake to just assess what's going on with them. And I do work closely with the parents as well, because they obviously have to give me permission to work with the kids because these kids are from 10 to 12. So then I talk to the parents, see what's going on, and then I sit down with the kid and kind of just get like a baseline of where they're at and then what their initial goal is. And sometimes it is hard to get the kids to even talk because they're just like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, I'm having a tough time already. Now I got to talk to you. So it's kind of just like also working on having that rapport with them, because to me I'm just another adult to them. I'm someone who's going to like rat them out if they're doing something that they feel is like detrimental to them. So creating that rapport is also what I have to work on with the kids, like on a day-to-day basis. So I try to meet with them like once a week just to be like, okay, I'm going to be like that person you can come to, and I'm not going to be this scary adult that's just going to like like tell you what to do. I'm more of a support system for you.
No, that sounds really good. Um, do you have much engagement from when you're supporting students like from the Black community? Do you feel like there's a difference in how they approach that sort of support that you deliver, or is it like the same across the board? Because they are children, and like you said, they usually have a skepticism about professionals and adults.
Oh yeah. The school I work in is like predominantly white. So when there are those kids that are black or like non-white, like when they see me, it's almost like they just saw like Santa or something. They're so excited. And like that speaks so loudly to like how like there's not much black counselors in this field, that like these kids are literally like, who is that? And it's really scary because at I mean, for me, it's an advantage because then it's like they see that there is representation, so they're more likely to talk to me. But then when it comes to the white kids, I'm almost like it's I'm fighting against them because it's like they still see me as like an adult, and they also kind of just like see our differences, and they're like, "Well, will she understand? Like, will she actually get it?" So it's it's a disadvantage for me at times because it's like now I'm in a usually it's like I'm in a space where it's like, okay, because of my profession, I have like this like comfort with them. But for me, it's also just because I am like this new like black person. It's like, can I actually trust them?
That's really interesting that you've said that, and it's not surprising that that's your experience. And I guess, if we're looking at intersectionality, age does play like a massive factor on how people perceive, the help that they're receiving from professionals.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you've touched on it briefly, I think, about stigma, because that's what we're going to be talking about today, specifically in the Black community. Um, what do you think? Do you think there's a massive stigma in the Black community in relation to Black mental health? As far as you're aware.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like even my sister, when I tell her like about my job, she's always just like, "Oh, so you just get paid to talk to people?" And I'm like, "No, not." I mean, talking, yes, is one of like the things we have to do, but like it's like I'm literally trying to assess this person and like see what is their like actual issue and work on interventions to help them with that. So it's like within the Black community, it's more the stigma is like one, they don't want to talk, and two, it's just like what's the whole point of even talking to someone? Like, will this person get me? Like, what is like the actual outcome of this? Like, going to therapy is not going to solve my problems. I have enough problems. Why do I need to like go to therapy to talk about them? So yeah.
I guess, yeah, that's a really big thing culturally, where I think a lot of Black people they already experience so much adversity in the environment and communities that if you're experiencing a mental health issue, it's really easy to brush it aside and put it to the side as it's just another thing that I have to go through. It's just another thing that affects me. And I think there's perhaps a lack of knowledge on symptoms and how when it gets to a certain point you actually do need professional help. What do you think informs on this culture of being strong and kind of like going through it and just hoping for things to get better?
I think it does have to do with just like the history of Black people within the world. It's like we went from slavery to like colonization, and those literally taught us just, oh, you just have to deal with it. Like you just have to sit here and take this injustice and deal with it. You can't say anything about it because we as the discriminators or like the prejudiced people are the ones that are right and we know what's going on. You're just like we're treated like second class, so it's like you're the second class citizen, so don't say anything. So then it's like we approach everything like, okay, I don't need to say anything, I don't need to, because it's like I'm supposed to go through the suffrage because that's all Black people ever do is go through suffering. So I'm going to take the suffering that I'm feeling inside and just hold it in.
Yeah. And I guess as well, like across the world, like you've said, like, things like the the strong Black woman trope sort of thing, it discourages people from seeking support because nobody's expecting a Black woman who's supposed to be strong and capable to admit that they're struggling in that way.
Mhm.
And I guess that's a barrier for a lot of people in actually, making that initial step to ask for help because they think it's normal, don't they?
Yeah. Like I literally have like internal dialogues with myself about the strong Black woman, because it's like sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I am this strong Black woman. I can do whatever. I'm like, I can handle whatever. But then it's just like sometimes I sit there, I'm like, I'm tired of being the strong Black woman. I just want someone to ask me how I'm doing and just like actually like sit down and like talk to me and like see what's going on with me instead of just being like, oh, you got this. You're a strong Black woman. You're like, no, I'm struggling.
I'm struggling too.
Exactly.
No, I definitely get that. And I think people don't realize just how toxic it is to have this mentality and this approach. And I guess when you do share it with your community that you're struggling, you also receive that backlash of, are you really wanting to seek support for this thing that we're all experiencing? Who do you think you are that you
Mhm.
need to reach out and ask for professional help? Do you think that's a fair assessment of, how things may be within our own community?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like with Black women, we always get the like stereotype of just being like we're overreactive, or like we are too sensitive, we're too aggressive. And it's kind of just like our aggression comes from being silenced for so long that it just kind of feels frustrating at this point. So it's like, yeah, we've come off aggressive because sometimes we just want to get our point across because we're just so silenced. And it's very hard when you're getting back, like the feedback you're getting is you're aggressive, you're too you're oversensitive, you're too much. And it's just like, okay, then I guess I'll be silent again.
Yeah, and then you just suppress,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't get any better. And I think the prevalence rates, across the board, they do show that, Black people, they're more likely to experience these, mental ill health. But then it doesn't reflect on, the people actually accessing support. And I think that's really worrying as well.
Mm-hmm.
What do you, go on.
Oh no, you can go on.
I was gonna ask about I think there's another massive aspect as well, like with there's culture and then there's also religion, where like if there is an acknowledgement that somebody is struggling, people would rather go for to see their pastor, to get a blessing or to speak about their issues rather than seek professional mental health support. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I understand the factors of religion because the real, like when you talk to your pastor, it's almost just like a therapy session with your with your pastor. It's just more like there's God involved in there, and I feel like it should go hand in hand. Like we should like praise the fact that Black people are very religious because it gives them that comfort, but then we should also like give them that mental health, but like combine it together. Just don't ignore the fact that their spirituality plays such a big role in their like mental health itself. So it does go on to like the Eurocentric like ways of mental health. It focuses more on just like treatments that are so white centered that it really, that's probably mostly why Black people don't want to go to therapies, because like the treatment is so like Eurocentric, that it's kind of just like you won't understand that maybe religion really does play a role in me, in like my mental health. And you have to combine that and find ways to for them to see like seeking out their pastor as a good thing, but also being able to be more comfortable talking. So it's like, yeah, encourage them to go seek their pastor, because then it's like they're comfortable with disclosing like so many things to someone that when you come in and be like, hey, I'm your counselor, they can be more comfortable, be like, yeah, I've had experience talking to my pastor, and then ingrate that with them. Be like, okay, what do you and your pastor talk about? Like, how's your pastor been helping you? Like, what are things I could do that your pastor does well as well?
No, I think you're so right. And studies have shown that, generally, Western mental health practitioners can be quite dismissive of, people of color and their customs and religions, and how this is part of like a holistic kind of like approach on how you can measure health, I think, and well-being, because it's important to them. But they generally, the practitioners kind of dismiss this aspect of well-being, and it's not conducive, I think, to positive outcomes with mental health. So I think you're definitely right about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you've already said that, having that connection between the faith groups or religions and mental health practitioners can be really useful, because it is like starting that conversation and opening it up, but it's also the acknowledgement that you do need that professional support, because like you said, when your family member said, do you just talk to these people, is that all you do? And it's a lack of understanding that actually these are, evidence-based interventions that have been shown to help people. But yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, okay, no, that's cool. And you have, I think we've touched on as well about the actual discrimination and racism that people experience. And when you go to the professionals, they're not understanding of this. I was thinking about some barriers, just some surface level barriers, like maybe people who are likely to experience mental health, like people like immigrants as well, when they're coming to this country and maybe English is not their first language. I think there might be a disconnect with the practitioners if these considerations are also not taken into place. And it's just another barrier for people of color or Black people to refuse to engage with that support, because they feel like it's not a space built for them. I think you've said that as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's another thing Because I feel like multiculturalism, which is kind of like intersectionalism, really started being taught in schools like in the early 2000s. So it's like when you see the profession, like the professionals that actually have their license and all that stuff, when they got their degree, they weren't really taught multiculturalism. So it's like when they're going into these sessions, they already have it with the Eurocentric like theories in mind. They're not actually looking at the outside factors that may be also affecting someone. So it's like, oh, you have depression. Okay, let me go through the DSM and just see if you're like you're hitting all these, instead of being like, okay, what else are you experiencing? Because racism, literally, it makes us depressed. It makes us anxious. So it's like you don't have an understanding of what racism is or what discrimination is, you're not going to be like your best profession to that person who's coming into your office. You're just literally probably going to maybe hit a little bit of the surface, but you're not actually going to give them the real help they need to actually go out into the world and be able to, I guess, I don't want to say like face racism in a better way, because I don't really think there's ever going to be a better way to face
Yeah.
racism, but at least have that like mental like strength to be able to actually like face it.
Yeah. So I guess more training is needed for, for these professionals to actually have an understanding of the different people that they're supporting, because it's not useful. It's not useful to just read, the DCM and, come up with these diagnoses that are not fully aware of how we're experiencing our day-to-day lives.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I couldn't agree more as well. I think also, well, they were just talking like, once people are actually receiving support as well, they're more likely to kind of like receive I don't want to say like harsher treatments or harsher outcomes. Would you say that that's a fair assessment to make?
Oh yeah, I definitely think so, because it's kind of just like the lack of understanding. So it's like you're kind of like throwing the whole book at this person, because it's like you don't have the actual like whereabout of like, oh, there's probably more to it than just, oh, this person is sad, so let's just do the depression monologue to make sure that they're okay. Or what I'm actually like experiencing now is like with trauma, like most people are just like, oh, you have to like witness this like horrific thing like firsthand, but like with the internet now, like black people are witnessing like black people get like lynched in day, like in broad daylight, and no one considers that that is actually traumatic. Because with me, when I think about George Floyd, like it like literally makes me feel so uncomfortable, because I saw the video. I literally sat there through the 9 minutes and I was just like, I was internally traumatized. So it's like if I'm going into the office, like the therapy session being like, I may feel like I'm having trauma. And then she asked me, oh, what was it? She's probably gonna be like, oh, that was just a video. You didn't actually experience it. Like we weren't there. But it's like I'm experiencing someone who looks like me getting treated so like poorly, treated like they don't even matter. And now I have to go into like this world with people that look like the person who did that to them and be comfortable with them. It's like I need more support than you tossing me this DSM or like CBT. Like it's like more work that needs to be done, more talking about it, more of an understanding between you and the clinician of what's actually going on with you.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, because like with things like that, with with George Floyd and a lot of other incidents that have happened, any normal person, when they see that stuff, it will upset them, I think, because it's not a nice thing. But when you add that level of actually, I'm a black person and I'm aware of these things, and how this situation was allowed to occur,
Mm-hmm.
because I think for us, you don't have that option to be ignorant about it or to be naive about the full reality of what's happening. So
Yeah.
even if you're watching that with your friend who may be white, you're gonna have, I think, different reactions and different feelings that are gonna manifest themselves. So definitely, I couldn't agree more. Because so many people as well have access to this because of the internet as well. Scary.
Oh, yeah.
Actually scary.
It is
Yeah.
quite scary. It's like
Okay.
you get more angry too, and then you like kind of like perpetuate another stereotype of black people, like they're always angry. But it's like yeah, you're getting angry because you just saw someone like publicly get lynched, and then the government literally said, "Oh, it's nothing." And you're like, "Oh, okay."
Okay. But then I think this is part of it as well, where a lot of people, because like you said it, you suppress it and you go your everyday life, and then it just gets to a certain point where it's physically not possible to hold all of this in, and somehow it has to express itself, whether, in mental health or stress or something, that's not okay to experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh gosh, I yeah, just talking about it is all.
I know.
But yeah, I was also looking that, like, it was saying that black I was African and Caribbean people that are more likely to be diagnosed and admitted to hospital, like for schizophrenia as well. Which I think what this was trying to say is, when black people go and they share their mental health issues, it's almost as if society is not prepared for these issues, and they kind of like have to err on the side of caution, and maybe kind of like in a way not provide like an option for talking therapies, or something that's obviously not talking therapies for other mental health illnesses, but something that's like a starting point to see how somebody progresses with it. Because he said, I think they're more likely to be medicated for things even like depression, even though they express an interest for other interventions as well.
Mhm.
Do you think this could be like another factor that kind of like contributes to the stigma and the kind of like gatekeeping of seeking support for mental health?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like even what's even sad is like when schizophrenia is already one of those like mental illnesses that's like seen in a negative light. So that it's like when you have person with schizophrenic who identifies as black, their like access to even just being seen goes down even more because it's like people already see black people in such a negative view, and then it's like you add a mental illness that literally is seen so negatively on top of them. All of a sudden it's just like, oh no, they're just crazy, I'll leave them alone, they're just crazy. Like it's more likely for a black person with schizophrenia to just be like, oh, leave them alone, they're crazy, no, don't talk to them, they're dangerous. Because that's also another stigma with like schizophrenia, is like schizophrenic people are like dangerous, and it's like black people are dangerous, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, that most of like the clinicians who see them are just like, oh, just give them this medication just to like calm them down, just give them this medication to calm them down. In a way, this medication is just like seen as another silencer. Like it's not a way to like therapeutically help this person, it's just another way to like silence them so then they don't have to deal with them.
Yeah. What you said about, oh, just leave them alone, they're a bit, insane or something like that. It takes me back to when I moved to the UK, because I was born and raised in Botswana, Africa. I remember when I came here, I was like, oh, there's so many people with mental health issues in this country. We don't have that where I come from. And I realized later, after I was studying psychology, that actually it's because when things like that happen back home, people are hidden from society. Nobody wants to admit that I've got a family member that's got these issues, because our approach and our attitudes are just really toxic. um so you just have to hide somebody and pretend that that doesn't happen. So for somebody like me who's growing up, I just think, well, nobody's got these issues, when that's not correct.
Yeah, and I also think because mental health is not talked about in the Black community a lot, it is really hard to see that someone does have a mental illness. Like schizophrenia is just like someone just being crazy or being too aggressive. Depression is just someone being too lazy. Anxiety is just someone being like, I guess, like annoying because they're just like
Difficult.
all over the place. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like sit down with this person, like have a conversation, like actually ask them what's going on, don't just like write them off. And that's like the saddest part about the Black community. It's like we are so close, we're like so fast to just write each other off, because I feel like as much as we have this like cultural way of living, like, we're about our family or about helping other people, sometimes it's like if you're not in the family, you don't need to be in our business, and I don't need to like help you. So it's like, oh, if I see you do something crazy, I'm gonna be like, no.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think it's also like, part of it is things like lack of resources. People don't have the ability to go to therapy because it's expensive. And I think this is also like another barrier that adds that layer of it's not a space for Black people, it's a space for white people who've got money to talk about that, that issues. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like that's why most people see like therapy as like a white thing, because it's like most people who have these like private practices are like charging $100 a session, and you're like, who has $100 just ready to like be given to someone? It's like, yeah, there are maybe a huge population, but that's not representing like the whole population of the world. Like you have to be able to make your like practices accessible, but also it's because like the mental health has just been taken over by white people, that has just become a white space. So it's just 10 times more just unavailable because it's like in these rich areas. Like I literally walk around to see like where like these like doctor practices are, or like all these people who have like their own practices, like where they actually put their offices, and it's usually in these rich neighborhoods, and you're just like, okay. And you go down to like maybe like a more rural place, and there's no access. Like the only access they probably will have is the hospital, and we all know how much hospitals cost. So it's like there really is just no access whatsoever. And that's why for me, I want to do my own private practice. That way I don't just set like a one price, I literally set a price for them, what makes them comfortable, because I feel like that's how it should work.
Definitely, and that's why it's so important, like I said, to have people like you, professionals like you, who are aware of these experiences to make these considerations. What you said was really interesting about, like, when they do experience, when they do go to these spaces, it's in white spaces or expensive hospitals. I also came across, like, I think in the UK it was saying that, when Black people do receive mental health support, they're, likely to receive that from like the criminal justice system. And of course this is like not a route that's going to make your experience in mental health the most positive, because there's lack of resources already.
Mhm.
Already you're faced with some charge or other that's going to compound your experience, I think. And when you're coming away from that experience, it's really, I think it's difficult to see any real life benefit. And when you're speaking to your friends and family about it, you're kind of like sharing this kind of experience that you've been exposed to, and I think that also contributes to that stigma. Would
Mhm.
you think that's fair to say?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that while we've like talked about, like you said, like some Black people end up having to like find these mental health resources because it's like it was court ordered, and it's like that's kind of like speaking onto like how we wait till it's too late for us to start actually like giving us a well, not proper, but like giving us help. Because with court ordered like mental health, I guess counseling, it's more focused on making sure that the person doesn't like reoffend. So they like kind of like focus on like their offense, like, oh, how did you, like, why exactly are you engaging in this? And it kind of doesn't really center around the person itself. It's more like it centers around the crime that they did. So yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think more often than not, it acts like as a tick box exercise. Like I work as a recovery coordinator, like supporting people with substance misuse issues. And
Mhm.
a lot of the time, some of these people are, maybe have criminal activity or such. So the first sort of encounter that they have with our service, which is a behavioral change service, is because a court has, mandated that they have to go and get this thing, ticked off for them to not have to go to prison or anything like that. And I think it's not really a productive exercise, because the person is just thinking, well, I just want to avoid jail time and that's me done.
Mhm.
And it's like, how helpful is that actually? But yeah, I think that's very interesting. I've just noticed on here that we've got a couple of comments. I'm just going to show them on the screen and read as I go. So, Prudence has said mental health problems are generated from the education system. My kids were bullied in school. I approached the school several times to challenge them on wanting to condition them. Majority of us focus on material possessions and financial stability, ignoring that our environment is new to the kids that we bring into the West. Social shock and many other factors contribute to kids' mental health issues while we are busy gaining status or job security. Wow. Prudence, yes, I couldn't agree more. Definitely. What do you think about this, Rudo?
Oh, absolutely. Like for me, I experienced that a lot because when I moved to the States, I was 7. I moved from Zimbabwe and I moved here when I was 7. And then I just like started school. But my mom got me into a Catholic school, so it was like predominantly white. So I would go into school just being like, all right, I'm ready to get this education, and then have someone literally like call me like a porch monkey or something, or just like, oh, you're so dark. Oh, that's your hair. Okay. Oh, those are your braids. Let me just pull them real quick. And you're like, okay. So then you have to like try to focus on like getting your education, like getting these good grades, but then you're also like facing these people that are just like basically othering you for absolutely nothing. So it's like, yeah, the school has to focus on actually making sure that their students are comfortable, because kids are mean. Kids are so mean to each other. So it's like focusing on like actually talking about bullying and like how it affects other people is a great step to making sure that kids actually feel safe going into school.
And I think kids are really smart as well, because these instances of bullying that are related to, to racism, they happen in children that are really young. So you can see that these children are already able to kind of identify in society that there is a hierarchy, and they use that to their advantage to kind of like make other people feel othered, or just emotionally unwell, I think, because I've got a little sister as well. Although she was born in the UK, like we do live, most people are kind of white where we live, so she does have that experience at school. Almost, on a monthly basis there is some incident, like a big incident, that's and the school is incapable of putting anything in place for when these things happen, to actually deal with it. And I think that's really worrying, actually, because
Mhm.
these children, that they're going to grow up with the same ideas, with the same patterns of behavior, and they never learned the consequences of of speaking to other children like this. But yeah, thank you, Prudence, for your comment. And somebody was just talking about secondary trauma. I think this was about a few minutes ago when you were talking about racism, and how our daily experiences, it does cause some trauma. When we're talking about social media as well. That was, yeah. Okay. Um, I was just thinking about some of the ways that we could possibly, combat this stigma in our community, to kind of encourage more people to seek support. I think we've already said, for example, having that relationship with religious groups. I think that would be really good. I don't know if you guys have this in the US, but there's this called like a mental health first aider here, where just I think like anybody could do it. It doesn't mean that you're a mental health professional, but it just means that you're somebody in the community who can identify symptoms of mental ill health, and signpost somebody to the correct help. I think if we had things like this, maybe like in churches, like when people just signed up to be mental health first aiders, that's a really good, point of contact, I think, with mental health services, to kind of like identify those people that need support. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. Have you got any ideas on how how we can continue to do things like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think creating just spaces for Black people to at least not even like talk about it, but just like hear what's going on. Like this is a great platform for Black people to actually get educated on like mental health issues. Like actually being able to have these conversations more openly can help us to further our like I guess our stigma towards mental health, and just educating our teachers, educating like our coworkers, educating like making sure that everyone is just aware of what's going on with mental health itself. I also just like mental health across the board. And then I had one more, but then now I'm just like, eh.
No, that's cool.
Creating just better resources. Like, honestly, we really need to make sure that mental health is funded because everyone is lacking when there's no like resources in mental health.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think to be fair, like I think the UK is trying. There's a lot of like I think services that are opening up or positions for mental health professionals to kind of like at every level, whether it's like low intensity or high intensity, to make sure that you're covering people across the board. But I think you're definitely right. It's people having the right information on how to get a hold of these resources, because a lot of the time there's so much that's available to us, but we just don't know where to look. So I think that's just really important. You've already said more education for practitioners, for people in the community. I think also like for researchers as well. Like I think when you're looking at mental health in the Black community, a lot of the time, our experience is kind of like a lump together with other ethnic minorities, which I'm not saying I can I can see the point in it, but if you're actually trying to gain some sort of nuanced information about how this affects the Black community, it's really difficult, I think, because we have different experiences based on religion, culture, in our different countries. So I don't think it's useful for research to continue to say, BAME or ethnic minorities. But yeah.
Honestly.
I also think just like I think in the era of social media, obviously it can be very, very toxic. But I think we're having, more people come forward who are experiencing mental health issues. And I think this can be really, really helpful for, just the regular people to see that actually it can affect everyone and anyone. It's not just people who are I don't know, poor, or they have no education or things like that. So if you have strong, powerful Black women coming to the forefront saying, I've experienced this, I think it helps open those gates a little bit more. Assad has also just left a comment. Sorry, he said yes, we have mental health first aid in the USA. And great point about linking it with the church. The church also must confront its resistance to mental health treatment. Yes, yes, yes. Very, very true. Very, very true. But I think that's why, with these conversations that we're having, like this sort of platform, it would be good to have, somebody from like a community, like a church leader, to come on here and, kind of like dispel a lot of these myths that, that we have in our communities, that, somebody's being possessed by the devil, or it's a curse, or, these things that are not true. But yeah, Asad, I couldn't agree more. Um, Sorry, I'm just trying to look at my notes. But yeah, okay, no, that's cool. So have you got any more, anything more to say about our experiences, with stigma and mental health?
Basically, just know that you're not alone. Like, we as the Black community, as much as like our experiences may be different, I feel like the results are always kind of the same. Like, we do have like depression that we're not talking about. We have anxiety that we're not talking about, like generational trauma, just nuanced trauma. We have people with schizophrenia that are not even like being looked at, people with bipolar disorder that are not even being looked at. And it's just like, we as a community need to just support each other through it, because it's like some people are literally sitting there being like, it's just only me, it's just only me experiencing this, or I can't talk to someone because then it's like I'm being a burden on them. So kind of like being more supportive as a community can actually help us grow in the right direction and actually be able to give people that like mental space of just being like, yeah, you can talk about this. Yes, there's these professionals that can help you with it. So I think more just having these conversations more often within the community can help us at least get to like the next step.
Yeah, and I think there's nothing worse when you come to someone with a problem and they kind of like make you feel like your experience is not valid. I think when I was preparing for this, I came across this idea like of the like sort of triple like this triple kind of effect that you'll get from your family if you're telling them that I'm experiencing this problem, from the society, and then the internalized, you know, self-hate as well, that, oh, what's wrong with me that everybody seems to be fine with this and I'm the only person who seems to be struggling. I think, yeah, I think that that's really interesting. Are you aware of any sort of resources that are useful? I imagine, you know, for you, maybe it's going to be for children that could be useful in gaining support for mental health.
I mean, sometimes people do say like, oh, go to your guidance counselor or go to like whoever is in school. But I feel like, yeah, make sure that they are a trusted adult and make sure that they do, like, you have that rapport with them and like seek them out. But also, there are some after school programs that most kids can go to. But with that, it's kind of like in the Black community, most people are kind of facing poverty, that most of these like after school programs may not actually even be affordable for them. Or like maybe most of them it's just like mom is going to be at work for this long, that it's like the after school program closes at this time, so I can't stay for that long. So I mean, there's still a lot of challenges that we do need to face, that it's because of what we're experiencing, that most of the time the resources that we're actually seeking out, we can't even have access to them because of what we're experiencing. Maybe we're working too hard, maybe like we're facing poverty. Like there's so many other factors that I feel like it does kind of almost feel like we can't do anything. But obviously it's more for me at this point, it's kind of just like seeking out a trusted person in your circle.
Definitely a trusted person. And I think school is a really good place to start as well, because there's a wealth, I think, of knowledge on the different local sort of services that are available to support. I think I didn't realize, I was just I don't know why I was on the government web, like our local council website, and I came across this the service called Emotional Health Academy. It's specifically for children. I mean, it's in Berkshire where I live, but it's just something that I was completely unaware of. And because I just had a specific reason to go on that website, was probably procrastinating and doing bits that I shouldn't have been doing, I came across it and I was like, oh, actually, I know like a couple of like young children that would really benefit from this sort of support. But it's not widely, I think not a lot of people know about it. So I think, you know, just look on your local websites like councils to see what help is available. Like you said, speak to adults, speak to professionals to see where you can get this sort of support. I know that, you know, you want to start your own practice as well, so I wish you all the best with that. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing service where you are counting and accommodating for a lot of different people's experiences. Melody's just left a comment here. I'm just gonna share it with everybody else. She said, "Hello, Africa. This is a serious issue you are discussing. Good people. I think we as adults we have to be very careful of doing wrong things in front of our children, and also we need to come together and learn to solve our African problems without Europeans, because one of the biggest problems that causes mental illness is economy." I thank you. Yeah. What do you think about that, Rudo?
Um, I mean, yeah, we do have to be careful of doing the wrong thing, but just don't put that much pressure on you. Like if you do the wrong thing, just have like talk to your children afterwards. So don't ever put that pressure of just being like, I need to be this perfect parent. Because like you can also acknowledge your mistakes and also have that conversation with your kid, like, hey, I made this mistake. Sorry. Oh, I overreacted and I'm very sorry. This is why I overreacted. So more just having like an open communication with your kids is more helpful than trying to just like not do the wrong thing. Yeah. And
No, go on, go on.
oh yeah, I was gonna touch upon like that the European problem. It's like, yeah, mental health issues are also because it's like the economy. Like here in the US, like we're not even being that much funded. Like we don't have that many funds within the mental health like community. So it's like it does get hard to find those resources or even make better resources for like Black people to access. So yeah, we definitely need to actually be more proactive with that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I also wanted to add about this, about the parenting thing. I've noticed just recently on the internet, like a crazy amount of young parents are actually acknowledging a lot of this inherited trauma, and how a lot of malpractices from, when their parents were raising them. And they're very aware of this, and this kind of desire to avoid passing these practices on to their children. I think that's such a beautiful thing that's happening. There's more open dialogue between, children and parents about emotions and mental health. I think that's just so exciting. But yeah, and all the other bits that you said about basically the Eurocentric sort of, space of mental ill health. But Melody, thank you so much for your comment. Somebody just shared a link on there. But I think we've discussed a lot. And thank you so much, Rudo, for coming on here and discussing this with us. I look forward to having many more conversations like this. Is there anything that you would like to say, just to say goodbye to people, or?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. It's actually been amazing to talk about these issues because this is actually the first platform, well, the second platform I got to actually talk about like Black issues. The other one was like Black and brown issues. But we do constantly need to have these conversations because even me as a profession in this, knowing and understanding what's going on with my mental health, I still feel that like loneliness. I still feel like all just the effects of like being Black and having mental health issues, just like effects on me, like that loneliness, that anger, that sadness of just feeling like we're never going to overcome this. Like, so what's the whole point anyway? Like the government's always going to see us as second class, so it's like, why even try, why even bother? So it's good to have this space where we can at least come together and just give each other that support, like, hey, like as long as we stick together, I'm pretty sure we can be able to get ourselves the mental health resources to actually be able to make these people see us in a good light. If we create the spaces for us to even just feel good ourselves, the world is going to see those positive, like positive attributes that we have, because we have so many great positive attributes. Like our strong Black mentality sometimes actually is good for us because it like pushes us to keep fighting, because all we've ever done is fight, but we at least have that mentality just to keep going.
Yeah. And we're getting more educated, we're becoming wealthier. And I think, the stats show that as we get up, we experience more of these issues because we're kind of taking space in these environments that have not thought about us. There's no blueprint on how to, kind of hold ourselves in these spaces. But yeah, I think you're definitely you're right about that. And like I said, thank you so much. This has been a lovely conversation, and thank you for everybody who's taken the time to interact with us in the comment section as well. But yeah, please catch us again next week, Saturday, at the same time, where we'll be discussing more issues affecting the Black community. Thank you, Rudo.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.